What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the LMBE podcast, where LMBE stands for literally nothing but everything. I'm Mike Rispoli. And if you want to follow me on my socials, you can find me at the LMBE podcast on Instagram and TikTok. I also do have a YouTube channel. It's just the audio versions of this until I can figure out video. But also feel free to like, share, and comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And it would really help me out if you could give me that 5-star rating if you guys like what you hear. And if you also want to write in about any segments that I've done, or if you just want to share your opinion on something I've said, you are more than welcome to reach out to me at lnbemedia@gmail.com. And with that, let's kind of get into this bitch. So how many of you still got 10 fingers? Did you all have a happy, safe, and fun 4th of July? You know what's so funny is, after hearing what I put out last week, a buddy of mine reached out to me, and he sent me this article from Rhode Island where it says, Westerly man died after firework was set off on his head. And I didn't even need to open up the article to realize what had happened, because I figured that the heading said it all. But I'm assuming he was a little bit blue after the fact, considering half of his head probably blew one way and the other half of his head blew the other way. And I know that joke is as old as time, but you know what else is as old as time is the fact that natural selection just continues to occur right in front of our very eyes. I don't even care if this is going to make me sound bad, but if you're dumb enough to put a firework on your head, you kind of low-key deserve exactly what's going to happen to you. Like, I don't know what to tell you at that point. Oh yeah, let me just put the big, loud, colorful thing that goes boom on my head and see what happens. And if anything, I actually feel more bad for his kids. I don't know if he's got kids, because like I said, I didn't read the article. But if he has kids, I can only imagine what they say, like, later on in life. Like, oh, my dad passed away. Oh, how'd he pass away? He died in an explosion. Oh, shit, did he see war? Nah, you know how it goes. Just some 4th of July shenanigans. And these are the fucking people who continue to breed. Like, it's honest to God, no wonder why our country seems to be going in the shitter. Happy 4th of July, though. Honestly, instead of Uncle Sam, I think America needs a new mascot. I think you can keep the Uncle Sam essence, but you gotta put a firework in one hand and an alcoholic beverage in the other, but you just gotta make him look incredibly confused, because dementia now seems to also be one of the requirements you must have in order to run for political office, which is why they are refusing to let RFK up on that debate stage. And speaking of, since I brought it up last week, another one of my friends reached out and was like, hey, after hearing your pod, it kind of made me want to look into more of RFK. I just really don't know what his stances are on anything. And being the RFK advocate that I am, I'm more than willing to give you my opinion on him, especially considering the fact that I also just don't think that we need two guys to run the country who actually were probably here when the country first formed. But also, I gotta say, what I truly like about RFK is he actually talks about issues that seem to truly matter. And he's not getting sucked up with the whole Trump shit of trying to turn our political system into friggin' trash TV. Because that's what Trump did. Trump turned our political system into reality TV, where all it's become now is just insulting each other. And it's not even insulting each other on policy. It's just insulting just to insult, and that's what he's considering a debate. Now, I gotta be honest, the only way I even know about RFK's stances on stuff is actually through TikTok. Which makes sense, because he's one of the politicians that's actually in support of TikTok, and he doesn't want it to be banned. And that's just because he thinks it's a benefit. Because he's just like, look, I see it more for like entrepreneurship. I think it's a way of censoring people. I don't think that you should ban it. And I am in total agreement. Do I think that maybe it needs to have less control as to like the tracking abilities? Absolutely. But, I mean, considering that everything tracks us already, I mean, how many times on Google, when you look up something on your phone, there's a little pop-up that says allow for location or whatever the fuck. So you're being tracked no matter what, and your devices are always listening. Oh my God, I actually remember about like 5 years ago, I was on the phone talking to somebody, and I just made the comment that I was like becoming a little bit more of an insomniac and I was having trouble sleeping. And my Alexa overheard that. And a few hours later, right when I was just about to go to bed, I was turning off my lights. Unprompted, my Alexa just turns on and just goes, hey, are you having trouble sleeping? I can provide you some tips. And I'm just like, excuse me, but did I ask for your opinion? No. So give me a break that it's all about the tracking stuff, because it's clearly not. And the amount of exposure that TikTok can give somebody on a business standpoint, it's amazing. So I definitely don't think that they should be banning TikTok, especially considering the fact of what I talked about a couple weeks ago, where attention now garners currency. So the more attention that you can bring yourself, the more currency you'll also be able to bring in. And TikTok also seems to provide that for people. I mean, look at Hawk Tuah Girl. That one viral clip brought that chick so much fame. I've seen videos of her prancing up around with Zach Brown on stage, and she's doing interviews with Barstool Sports and all this shit, and now she's getting some sort of a podcast deal. And I'm like, bitch, I have a podcast. Whose dick do I gotta hawk to get famous? Like, my God. Oh, did he? Oh, but speaking of Hawk Tour Girl, I actually found out what her name is. It's Haley Welch, so I don't have to refer to her as Hawk Tour Girl from now on. But honestly, what's even more crazy about any of this is the fact that now I just saw that she's also going to be getting a reality TV show. And I'm just like, what the fuck kind of a reality TV show is she going to get? Hawk Tour with Haley? Catch her on HBO late night with the newest rendition of Taxi Cab Confessions. If you know, you know. But what's next? Endorsement deals? All of a sudden we just start seeing Trojan boxes with her face on it. And it's all due to TikTok. Like she was just some nobody 21-year-old college kid. She does a video, it goes viral all over the internet, and now she's famous. And that never would have happened if it wasn't for TikTok. And now look at her. She's going to be swimming in money. Fucking get it, girl. So yeah, I agree with RFK that TikTok should not be banned just due to the amount of exposure that it could give people and companies to help them grow. But another thing that I like that Kennedy talks about is the fact that he actually talks about like the chronic illness epidemic that seems to be going on in our country that no other country apparently seems to have. Like in a few videos, I've heard RFK talk about the fact that like obesity wasn't that big of a deal when I was growing up. Autism wasn't really a thing when I was growing up. Like what is going on in our current system and supply of whatever the hell's going on here that's causing these illnesses. And what he wants to do, he actually said that he was going to put in an executive order, one to ban pharmaceutical ads on television, which we're the only one of two countries in the world that does that. So I think that's a great move on his part because America, I feel, is just over medicated. Now, what I'm not saying is that if you do have one of these issues, that you should not seek the treatment for it. However, I feel like doctors are in bed with pharmaceutical companies because why is it that every single little thing has a medicine for it? I went to the doctor last year and I was telling him that I'm like an insomniac and I've been having trouble sleeping. I don't know if it's just due to like my work schedule or what's going on here. And I've always been more of a night owl. But at this particular time, I was not even feeling tired. So I'm like, something is going on. So I talked to my doctor about it. And he just goes, yeah, so if you're having bouts of insomnia, there's two pills that we can give you. One actually is more of a treatment for anxiety, and the other one is more of a treatment for depression. And I'm like, I don't have either one of those things. I just want to be able to fucking sleep. Can you just maybe give me that medical marijuana card? Like, hook a brother up? But no, I ended up just walking out of there empty-handed, just being like, okay, I'm just going to fucking live with this issue then because I don't want to have to deal with the medicine that for something that I don't even necessarily have. And I feel like that might be part of the problem is every little thing, there's always some sort of a medication for it. Like every little problem that you have, oh, here's a pill that you can take. And it's like, well, what if I don't necessarily need the pill for that? Like, just tell me something else that I could do to supplement for it. Like, I don't know. But on top of banning pharmaceutical ads on television, because part of his thing with that too was he was like, Anderson Cooper's programming, every other ad is a pharmaceutical ad. So he's not necessarily getting paid just by the network. He's also getting paid by the pharmaceutical ads. So all of these networks are also in bed with the pharmaceutical companies as well. So on top of banning pharmaceutical ads on television, according to a quick Google search, Kennedy will start funding studies into the causes of chronic diseases, including toxic chemicals like PFAS, oh, how do you pronounce this? Glyphosates, neonics, etc., whatever the fuck those are, air and water pollution, microplastics, as we've seen that are in all of men's testicles, so A plus on his part, electromagnetic pollution, ultra-processed foods, and pharmaceutical products, as we just talked about. So he's actually going to start trying to fund studies to look into issues as to what's causing this chronic illness epidemic that we seem to be having in America, which I'm a fan of. I don't see any issues with that. And then some of the other things that I like about him is he claims that when he was asked about ending the war in Ukraine with Russia, now this is something that I said that I think it might have been more like hindsight is 2020, where he said I would have used more diplomacy. But when it comes to ending the war in Ukraine, he's actually vowed to like end that war. And his plan to stop the fighting includes offering to withdraw U.S. troops and missiles from Russia's border and convince Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine. So, I mean, I don't see any issues there. Because he's also got this idea as peace as a priority when it comes to foreign policy. So he's promising to, quote unquote, end the proxy wars, bombing campaigns, covert operations, coups, paramilitaries, and everything else that has become so normal that most people don't know what's happening. So he's just looking for peace, which I don't see any issues with that. How are you going to yell at a guy who just wants peace in the world? We got World War III headlines every fucking other day, and here's a guy being like, hey, maybe we don't need that in life right now. And then when it comes to the two main issues of what's going on that everybody seems to be voting on nowadays is vaccines and abortion. And literally his stance on both of those is it's up to choice. It's up to the people to make the decision if they want to get vaccinated. And it's funny because everybody thinks that RFK is actually anti-vaccine. He's not anti-vaccine. He himself has gone on podcasts and said that he's vaccinated, his kids are vaccinated. He has no issues with people getting their vaccines. But when it comes to something like the COVID vaccine, he's like, it's up to the person if they want to get vaccinated or not. And let's be real. That's how it should have always been. It should not have been mandated. I understand that COVID was a very scary time and nobody knew what was going on. But natural selection at its finest. Look at the guy with the firework on his head. It's never been mandated for us to get a flu vaccine, and that's ultimately what COVID is. So why was it mandated that we all had to get a COVID vaccine? Now, I took it upon myself to get the vaccine, and I also might argue that that's possibly why I didn't get the actual illness until 2024 in January without actually getting it. So yeah, I might credit the vaccine to that. But again, that was my choice. And also, I was low-key doing it because I was selfish. I'm like, hey, I don't want to necessarily get the actual illness, so let me get this thing. And even if I do get COVID, maybe this vaccine will help dampen some of the symptoms. But he's right in the sense that it should be up to choice. Like, either you could choose to get it or you could choose to not, and you reap your own reward at that point. And then when it comes to abortion, again, he's up to choice. It's up to the woman's decision. He goes, most of the time, women will most likely probably get an abortion due to the fact they can't afford it. Like, nobody in their right mind is willingly going to go out and get an abortion. Like, that's not something that people will seek to just have done to them. But also, as somebody who wants less government involvement in my life, I also don't think that it's up to the government to dictate what choices I can make as a civilian. And I might get some shit as a Catholic. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, where I actually am in agreement that I feel like abortion should be more of a choice rather than mandated that it's illegal. But my stance on this is the fact that as a Catholic, I believe in the sense that God gave us free will, right? And from what I perceive free will to be is this idea that God gives us the moral obligation to either choose from doing something morally righteous or morally sinful. So if somebody wants to go out and choose to get an abortion, that's ultimately their choice in the bed they gotta lie in. I can spread my own opinion on why I think it might be a bad idea, why I might disagree with it, but at the end of the day, it's up to that person to make their choice. And if they do make that choice, then that's for that person and for the big guy upstairs to figure out when that time comes. It's not my responsibility. My responsibility comes down to having a conversation with you and discussing as to why it might be a morally incorrect act. But it's ultimately your decision on if you want to do it. Like, it's not my moral obligation to force you to do something. Like, that's the whole idea of free will. Like, God will never force you to do something. He leaves it up to your choice because we're all born sinners. And it's up to us if we want to deal with the temptation and then how we handle the situation moving forward, or if we're going to actually just lead a truly divine life. But nobody in their right mind is ever going to lead a truly divine life. Like, that's just totally impossible. Last I checked, none of us were the second coming of Jesus. But you know what I think is so funny about that? So, speaking of, you ever have something like amazing happen and it might not be the most morally divine, but at the end of the day, you're still just thinking like, thank you, Jesus, for that happening? Because over the weekend, I found myself at a bar. And it wasn't just the bar that I work at. Actually, on Friday when I was working, the bar was dead, so I actually really don't have any stories. And actually, because it was so dead, we ended up closing the bar up a little bit earlier than normal. So I took advantage and hung out with a friend of mine. And we're hanging outside at this bar just to like try and get some air, even though the air is so humid around here, it really wasn't even that worth it. Better off just being inside. But we walk outside, and about like 2-3 minutes after we're outside just hanging out, a group of 4 come out. 2 of them are getting into an Uber, but they're all saying their goodbyes. So they obviously all knew each other. And I don't know what prompted this, but all of a sudden, I just see this chick, who I honestly gotta say, given her age, I think she could still get it. But all of a sudden, as she's saying goodbye, she just whips her titties out. I have no idea what prompted any of this. But I gotta say, if it was just a goodbye gift, that's a bold move, Cotton. But then it was weird because then the girl ended up leaving with the other dude who wasn't getting in the Uber. So I'm like, is the guy she's with her husband? And if it is her husband, I could see what he sees in her because she's got some valuable assets. So don't tell me God doesn't exist because miracles do happen. So I think I found a new bar to continuously go to, which is kind of cool. But speaking of things getting exposed, I don't know what's going on with the Yankees. They've been kind of on a losing streak lately. They just lost the last 5 of their 6. And I saw somebody mention it where I honestly don't know if it was the Red Sox who figured this out. But when it comes to base stealing, the Yankees catcher just cannot seem to make the throw to second base, so a lot of teams tend to get stolen bases off him. So I wonder if our catcher's been exposed, which isn't good. You can't have a catcher that can't make that throw. So the Yankees got to fucking figure something out here with that. But it's still like kind of early in the season, so I'm not totally like stressing over it. I mean, they're second in the AL East, which is good, but I'm waiting for their typical August downfall. That always is what happens. And it's always because their pitching sucks. The Yankees always in the offseason, they go and get another bat, which is never what their problem is. They just picked up Juan Soto for God knows what reason, for however the fuck much they're paying him. But I don't know, I feel like it's not the need for another new bat in the lineup. They need to figure out their pitching issues because I saw this as of 2 days ago from Sports Illustrated is the Yankees pitching staff, which had been unexpectedly excellent during their hot start, has been downright putrid as of late. New York pitchers have allowed 123 runs over the team's last 19 games, which averages 6.47 per game, more than any other team in the majors over that stretch. So pitching is 100% part of the problem here, and it's amazing because if you look at Carlos Rodon's stats before he joined the Yankees, he was actually pretty good, and then all of a sudden he joins the Yankees and he's just fucking hot garbage. And he's not the only pitcher that this has happened to, so the pitching staff on the Yankees totally needs a reboot. The only bright spot on the Yankees truly has been Judge. I think he's got, 32 home runs this season? So I wonder if he's actually on pace to hit the record again, which would be kind of crazy. But even with that said, again, batting is never the Yankees' issue. Unless your name is Joey Gallo, because that dude just did not perform well when he was on the Yankees. Part of me wonders if the stress of New York is what got to him. But I don't know, man. I really don't know. So as a Yankee fan, it's really hard for me to get excited when they always have a hot start and then they just inevitably have a fucking downfall midway through the season. And then they always tend to squeak by to get into the playoffs just to lose in either the first or second round. So, I don't know, being a Yankee fan has been really shitty so far for the past I don't even know how long. I want to say 10 years? They just always make the playoffs and just end up going nowhere. So it's why are you giving us a sense of hope? I also can't even say that it's Boone's fault because for all of the injuries that Boone has had to deal with over the past 5 years or 6 years of his career as a Yankees manager, he's just had so much to fight through with injury. But I also got to be honest, I still can't seem to bring myself to think that the Giancarlo Stanton deal was a good idea. I mean, talk about a dude who can't stay healthy. I don't know. I feel like this might be an unpopular opinion, but I feel like Giancarlo Stanton is just A-Rod 2.0. But even that doesn't seem like a fair argument, because given what you like or dislike about A-Rod, at least you can say A-Rod was actually productive on the Yankees. And sure, Giancarlo hits dingers, but he hasn't done anything to help them win a championship. If it wasn't for A-Rod in '09, I don't know if the Yankees actually win that championship. And what's funny is I actually grew up loving A-Rod. It wasn't until the whole steroid thing and when he sued baseball for that I started hating him. But just like A-Rod, the Yankees picked up Stanton because he was a reigning MVP. I actually don't know if A-Rod was a reigning MVP, but I think he was second in votes for that year that they picked him up. But if you look at the comparisons, both of them were resulted from a blockbuster trade with massive contracts. The only argument that I can make to A-Rod is that the Yankees actually needed A-Rod on the team at that point because they actually needed a third baseman. There really was no need for them to pick up Stanton. The only reason they picked up Stanton is, again, just to have another bat in the lineup. But he's been garbage. Oh my God, I honestly will never forget this. It had to have been maybe 5 years ago where the Red Sox and the Yankees are playing in the postseason and the Yankees were down to their final out in the final game of the series to possibly move on to the next round. And Stanton just watches 3 pitches just go right by him. Like, didn't swing once. And I'm like, dude, what are you fucking doing? I mean, my God. I will never understand why he went down looking in a postseason game like a little bitch. I mean, I gotta be honest. That was the moment where I was like, I give up. That right there just set the tone for me. I was like, this is how this team plays. And then you see the bright spots with Judge where he just puts his all into every game that he plays. But then I'm also seeing stuff where in certain situations, if a ground ball is hit or somebody hits a fly out, some of the players aren't actually running it out to first base. And that seems to be another problem because say there's an error on the other side, you at least could have gotten on first due to an error, but because you didn't hustle your ass to the base, you missed out on that opportunity. So something's going on here. But with that said, I still always try to go to at least one Yankee game a year just because I do love the team. They were my childhood team. When I was a kid, I used to watch baseball fucking religiously, but now that I have a job and shit, I just can't seem to find the time to actually watch them because like baseball games are on at 1 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and I'm just like, who the fuck has the time to watch them like that? That's why football is honestly the best. On a Monday and a Thursday, the game is on at 8:30, so you got nothing else going on. And then you got your whole day on Sunday to just dedicate yourself to watching whatever game you want. So it's great. But I'll actually leave you guys on this little story here. I remember one of the last Yankee games I went to, Stanton was going through one of his typical droughts. And I was sitting nowhere near where he could have heard me, but I just couldn't help myself. I'm like, Stan, you couldn't fucking hit the 2 balls attached to your dick. But what I forgot to do was do that little look around, like when you're about to say a really offensive joke to make sure that no kids are around, but it was fine. Nobody got in trouble. But alright, people, I'll leave you on that note. Again, if you want to find me on social, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at the LNBE Podcast. Also, feel free to reach out to me through email at lnbemedia@gmail.com. You can also find me on YouTube. And if you would be so kind, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and review it to really help me boost this thing. If you guys like this and you want to help promote it, that would be fantastic. I would really appreciate it. But alright guys, thank you for listening. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I will catch up with you next Tuesday.